Today we're going to be looking at Hey That's My Fish, comparing this brand new edition to a version released over 20 years ago, and wondering how have people's taste in board games changed. Hi, I'm Julian from BoxedMeeples. Well, 2003. That was more than 20 years ago, and we didn't even know if we're going to call the year 2003 or 2003. And hidden the shelves around the world was this curious little game about moving penguins around hexagonal boards. The original Hey That's My Fish was designed by Lithuanian Alvydas Jagiellonis when he was thinking about artificial intelligence. After collaborating with Gunther Kornet, Bombus published the game under the name Pingavinas, which is Lithuanian for penguin. Their limited run of just 230 games sold out instantly. This English translation followed, published by Phanex Games and Mayfair Games, and this version was even recommended for the 2006 Spiel des Jahres award. However, most people will own a later edition published by Fancy Flight Games, which included a new box, new penguin miniatures, and new artwork. And in celebration of 20 years of Hey That's My Fish, Next Move Games and Plan B Games have released this brand new family-friendly edition. This promises all of the classic gameplay that you know and love, but with quality of life improvements that are going to make it easier to table than ever before. Regardless of which edition you own, the game is very simple to play. On your turn, you'll move one of your penguins in a straight line, only stopping when you reach another penguin or a gap in the ice. The tile you left from is removed, and you score the number of fish shown on that tile. Play passes to each player until there is nowhere left for the penguins to move. The winner is the one with the most fish at the end, but fish collection really is just the tip of the gameplay iceberg. Yes, Hey That's My Fish might look family friendly, especially in this brand new edition, but don't be deceived, this isn't just a children's game. After a few games you'll realise that going for the most fish is really not the best tactic. Hey That's My Fish is infinitely replayable. The 60 hexagonal tiles can create a randomised board, so you're never really going to be playing the same game every time. This game is really about trapping your opponents, limiting their movement by removing the icebergs that surround them. Ideal play will involve leaving your opponents trapped on an isolated iceberg while you have freedom to roam across all the board, collecting all the fish you can. So considering the gameplay in both of these games is identical, we've got an interesting case study where we can look at how taste of board game players has changed over 20 years. And the most obvious thing is the box size. Here we've got what we established now as a normal sized board game box. It's square, it can fit in a Kallax unit, whereas here we have something that's a weird kind of rectangular shape. Well, I don't quite know how I'm meant to slot it on my gaming shelves. On top of that, we've got various things within the box itself. In this modern version, we've got a convenient insert, which means we can just stick all of the hexagons in there really super easy. And miniatures got a place to go as well, whereas before the kind of hexagon tiles would just move around in this cavernous space at the bottom of the box, getting mixed up and mixed in with the meeples. But what is demanded nowadays is ease of play and getting a game to the table as quickly as possible, and that's where this kind of plastic tray comes in. You slot these together, and then all you've got to do is fit the hexagons onto it, whereas before you had to kind of physically place them next to each other, and more often than not, one knock would knock the whole grid apart and you have to start again. The tiles themselves in both games are almost identically sized, although it's much easier to read the new tiles because of the different coloured fish compared to the old ones. But the biggest improvement is just how easy it is to pick up the tiles. Obviously in a game like this, you're having to remove quite a lot of tiles, and trying to hoik them out of the iceberg when you're playing with the older edition is actually really tricky without knocking all the other tiles. But in this new version, it's just a case of pushing down on the corner and picking up the tile, and it's there to score at the end of the game. And getting this game to the table quickly is absolutely essential for a family-friendly game, especially if you're going to introduce it to young children. And it's a game you certainly can, because the rules literally take up that much space. That's the entirety of the rules. It really is one of those games you can explain super quickly and get to the table really quickly and not have people confused about what they need to be doing. Obviously, if you're playing with children, you might have to moderate your play slightly because, as I said before, it's a very aggressive take-that style game. Maybe in those situations, you may need to head towards the less strategic 3 fish and allow them to roam the board a little bit. at least until they get used to the rules and they learn the cutthroat nature that's hidden behind the quirky exterior. Now, while you're moving around the board has changed significantly over 20 years. Before we had these kind of wooden screen-printed meeples, which I think look lovely. But now we have these kind of miniatures, which seem to be based on the Wallace and Gromit films and the evil penguins that you find in those. The Fancy Flight one that came between these two games, all of the penguins had their own sculpts, although they looked a bit angry and aggressive. Whereas in this game, regardless of which colour you're playing, all the penguins look identical, which I think is a bit of a shame. But when you have something so adorable and cute, that's not really too much of a criticism. Is this the optimal version of Hey, That's My Fish? Well, yes and no. This one looks great on the table. It's quick to set up. It's easier to play than ever before. However, the Fancy Flight one came in a smaller box. You could take it travelling with you. You could take it anywhere you wanted to go. Whereas this one, you're kind of limited to only playing it at home, unless you want to lug this great big box around. In some ways, it feels like flamboyance and excess for the sake of celebration, which, is that a bad thing or not? Well, that depends on what you consider to be vital and what your needs as a board game player are. You don't really need to upgrade if you've already got a version you enjoy, particularly if you prefer the art style of earlier editions. However, if you've never played Hey, That's My Fish, you are in for a treat. And picking up this copy is probably the best way you can experience this fantastic game for the very first time. This game really is a modern classic, where ideal for family play, quick to set up, quick to explain, but for more hardened game players, it also works as a fantastic kind of filler game because there's a lot of strategy going on if you just consider this a kind of abstract puzzle game. If you intend to buy this game, the best place to go is your friendly local game store. And for us, in the southeast of England, that is of course Chaos Cards. And if you intend to buy from the website for Chaos Cards, we have a discount code in the description you can use, which is going to save you some money at checkout. Now, if you're new to this channel, I'm Julian, and usually I'm joined by Libby. And we talk about board games at least twice a week, always here on YouTube. So if that's your kind of thing, do consider subscribing, ringing that bell for notifications so you can see all our latest videos. And get involved in the conversation. Let me know in the comments down below, will you be upgrading your copy of Hey, That's My Fish, or are you happy with the version you've got before? Also, what family-friendly games do you recommend? We have several different videos about picking 10 different family games for younger players and for slightly older players. Well, what's not on that list that should be? Do let us know in the comments down below. But as always, thanks so much for watching.